Welcome to Our Jewish Roots, with insightful Bible teaching by Dr. Jeffrey Seif. In this program, a beautiful young woman takes a step of faith to save God's people from destruction. Today on Divine Deliverance.
From the beginning, our Creator revealed His will to the common man. Individuals who listened to His call and responded in obedience. From the first Hebrew Avraham to the culmination of salvation in Messiah Himself, the Lord faithfully intervenes with His divine deliverance.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm David Hart.
I'm Kirsten Hart.
I am Jeffrey Seif, and we are excited to bring you a great story, a great woman, Esther.
And Esther, so many people think about her as just this beauty queen, went through beauty treatments, but she was a picture of redemption. She saved the Jewish people.
Yes, and she's a picture of the fact that God uses people. He uses women. And some people marginalize women. I got the impression that's what you were saying, more than just a beauty queen.
Much more than that.
You know, this, just objectifying women for beauty and sexual objectification, not having more to give beyond that is troubling. You don't find that in biblical literature. God is very kindly disposed toward women and raises them up for special purposes, just like men.
Yes, and she put herself in harm's way to save God's people. I mean, it took a lot of gumption, can I say that word, to do what she did.
You sure can.
We start our program today with the beginnings of Esther's story. Let's go there now.
Mordecai, Esther's cousin, was among the captive Jews in Shushan. When Esther's parents had died, Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter and raised her, caring for her deeply.
והמלך מינה פקידים בכל הממלכה על מנת שיוכלו לאסוף את כל הנערות היפות אל ארמון שושן, לחסותו של הגיא, סריס המלך. והנערה אשר תרצה את המלך תהא מלכה במקומה של ושתי. נסיכתי, אולי מלכה את, אך מעל הכל זכרי כי יהודיה אינך.
And so it was that Esther was taken before Haggai, the guardian of the king's harem, and she was pleasing to him. It would take 12 months of preparation before Esther would appear before the king. Attended to by 7 maidens, she would receive 6 months' treatment with oil of myrrh, and then another 6 months' treatment with perfumes and cosmetics. Esther had never looked so lovely.
Okay, I've heard it and you've heard it. Quote, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." And ain't that the God's honest truth? Deliverance comes in different ways on different days. In this program, deliverance comes through a beauty contest. And the winner is Esther, as it says in the text, chapter 2, verse 17 of the book that bears her name. Now the king loved Esther more than all the other women. And by the way, there were others trying for the job. So he placed the royal crown upon her head and made her queen. And thus began a very interesting drama, one that we're going to explore as we consider deliverance, how it came through a woman named Esther. You gotta love it. The Bible is so interesting. I think personally preachers that make it boring ought to be sued for malpractice. It is a very cool story. Instead of preachers engineering various sermons, I get that. I think it's important just to tell the story. You know, at least get the story out first, and then we can explore what we want to do with it. In this case, this story of redemption is played out against the backdrop of a drunken king who embarrassed his main queen and then felt disrespected by her, prompting him then to look for a replacement. So word goes out, and there's a woman named Hadassah, and her guardian, Mordecai, puts her up to it and says, look, you ought to try out for this, I think. Something tells me you're in for something good. He prompts her to do it. So she does. And she goes through the whole warm-up process. All these girls come, they're applying for the job. There's a season of beautification, and then they have an opportunity to present to the king with whatever they want. It all comes on loan. You want a nice Rolex? Why not? Yes, we have some diamonds from Neiman Marcus. You're going to love them. Everybody dressed up right to the hilt. This woman, Hadassah, however, when it came turn for her, rather than deck out in all the regalia, she stood out because of her kind of simplicity, and thus a beauty was able to shine that wasn't obfuscated by diamonds and pearls and gold. Not that I'm amiss to all that. I like to say I like to keep my wife in diamonds and furs, but the point is here, with this woman it's a little different. We read in chapter 2, verse 15, the following. When the turn came for Esther, the daughter, to go in, we're told she did not ask for anything except for what the guardian, we're told, said, here, listen, let's just go minimal. And that's the way she did it. The net result in verse 17, we're told, and it's the verse that I just read, I'll say it again. Now the king loved Esther more than all other women, and she won his grace and favor more than all the other maidens. The concept of chosen people doesn't mean better than. I don't know that this woman herself necessarily is better than other women, but she's chosen in the sense she gets the attention of the principal. And he gives her grace and extends favor, subsequent to which he placed the royal crown upon her head. It's a great story. It's an old story, one that we're going to explore as we look more at deliverance in the book of Esther.
אם זה מרצה את המלך, שייכתב שהאנשים האלה יושמדו. ואני אשלם 10,000 כיכרות כסף לעוסקים במלאכה.
שמור את כספך. האנשים האלה הם שלך. עשה בהם כרצונך.
לכל המושלים ושומרי החוק בממלכה. בהתאם לצו המלך, מוכרז בזאת כי בי"ג באדר יושמדו כל היהודים. כל גבר, כל אישה וכל ילד יומתו ורכושם יילקח. יום זה מאושר בטבעת המלך.
אבל גם היא יהודייה. אמור לאסתר שגם היא תומה. היא ובית אביה יושמדו. אמור לאסתר במילים אלה, עליה לגשת אל המלך בזמן שכזה.
אמור למרדכי לאסוף את כל היהודים ולצום. לא לאכול או לשתות במשך 3 ימים, לילה ויום. אני אעשה את אותו הדבר, ואלך אל המלך בניגוד לחוק. ואם אמות, אז אמות.
It's a classic story replete with a heroine, and of course it wouldn't be a story if it didn't have a villain. His name is Haman. Did that shock you? Well, by the way, every time his name is mentioned in the synagogue, we get this. Everyone goes boo and turns these groggers around. In fact, once a year, we read the book. There's an expression that's used among Jewish people, the whole Megillah, the whole story. People don't realize the word Gila is the word for scroll. And the Megillot are the scrolls. And the book of Esther is brought out in the synagogue. And it's read, and every time we hear the villain Haman, boo, we get this. Every time we hear of the heroine, Esther, yay, and Mordecai, yay. It's a very interesting story. And by the way, it's the Jewish version of Halloween in the sense everybody dresses up, not just the children. Even the parents dress up, and everybody acts foolish. Not only do the children party, and you know how kids can be kids, they're outdone by their parents who act absolutely obnoxious. Every time we hear the name Haman and so forth, it really is a festive atmosphere. And why is that? There's a story here where Jews found themselves between a literal rock and a hard place. Haman used his influence to set in motion that which would result in the destruction of all the Jews in the empire. And that's an age-old story, by the way. People have been wanting to wipe out Jews for a long time. I think it's spiritual more than material, and I say that because pound for pound, look, you know, we have our scoundrels, but the Jews were really not a bad lot. And if someone's guilty, they get arrested like everyone else and have to answer for their crimes. But Jews really do tend to be decent. Despite all that, door to door, from generation to generation, people try and kill us. And so it is Jews celebrate this story, not because it's good news for the Jews, but it's a reminder that God raises up a deliverer. And I say that because unbeknownst to Haman, the new queen, the woman in charge, she was a Hebrew. Mordecai sends words and said, "Hun, listen, you know, maybe, just maybe, you've got to step up and weigh in on this to turn this around." And this is where you get in the story, you know, maybe this woman was chosen for such a time as this. At first she was reluctant, but then she stepped up. And though she wasn't supposed to go to the king, unless she was invited, she said, "Look, I'm going to do it." And in chapter 4, verse 16, she says, "Listen, I'm going to go to the king, even though it's not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish." I mean, if he wipes me out because I violated a principle, so be it. But I'm going to step into the gap. Thank God. God raises up redeemers in generation, from generation to generation, and I'm certainly pleased that he used Esther for such a time as this.
If you only watch us on television, you are missing additional content available only on our social media sites, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can always visit our website, which is home base for all of our ministry activities and information. There you can sign up for our free monthly newsletter, watch the TV program, or visit the online store. Join us as we tour Israel and Petra. Please contact us for more information. We would love to hear from you.
we are on social media, but I've got to tell you, there are still people that like to call and talk to someone. There are still people that like to take a piece of paper and pen and write a note. And if that's you, we welcome your call and we welcome your letters and your notes. And we'd love to hear from you. Levitt.com is our website. Our phone number's on there and our address. Now, let's see how the Feast of Purim got its name.
Pur, a simple cube-like object. Pur had been used to determine the date of death for every Jew in the Persian Empire. Now, 1 year later, Mordecai considers a brighter day.
אחי היהודים, צערנו הפך לשמחה. ימי האבל שלנו נהפכו לטובה. נזכור מיום זה ואילך את יום ה-14 של אדר וגם את ה-15. יום של חגיגות ושמחה. המן שהטיל פור נגדנו הובס. מכשיריו עתה יופנו נגדו. כל דור מיום זה יזכור ויחגוג את ימי פורים אלה.
ויתרה מכך, אני מחזקת את דברי מרדכי. ימי פורים לא יימחקו מהעם היהודי, וזיכרונם לעולם לא יפוג.
In English, we speak of rolling the dice. It speaks of just taking a risk and throwing it out there. Well, it happened in antiquity as well. In fact, the word pur, as in Purim, comes from a word for lot. They had a way of determining when to do things by throwing the dice and seeing when it landed. Well, they threw the dice to see when it landed. They looked to determine when to kill all the Jews. Happily, however, God had a plan to turn that around. The turnaround came through a woman. And it wasn't just her decree that saved them, it was her decree that gave them permission to fight for themselves, to make a spirited defense. Once the king issued a decree for a war, well, then it had to live out, but here the Jews were allowed to push back, and indeed they did. We're explicit in the text, by the way. The author gives voice in no uncertain terms that they offered a spirited defense and held it all back. By the way, that which was permitted in antiquity needs to similarly be permitted in modernity. And I mention that because you can read the biblical story. In chapter 9, we're told the Jews assembled and they were able then to lay hands on those bent on their demise. There is a wicked invention today, and that is the Jews don't have a right to defend themselves in the land. We should just be sheepish and let the world roll over us like a freight train. Well, after 2,000 years, Jews are back in the land providentially, and we're not minded to give it up so easily. And my hope and prayer is that women and men who are informed by biblical virtue will stand behind the Jewish right to be in the land and the Jewish right to make a spirited defense for themselves while being there. We're told here in chapter 9, verse 2, that those bent on their demise enjoyed no good success. We're told, and I'm explicit now, not just inferential, no one was able to stand against them, for fear of them had fallen on all the peoples round about. And you know what? Same today as yesterday, because history tends to repeat itself. When we look at deliverance, we see that God raises up a person. You wouldn't expect that person to be the person, but the fact that they exist, it means everything. Not everyone understands it. For some, Jesus was just some Jewish Palestinian who died 2,000 years ago, and some myth circulated about his resurrection subsequent to that. He doesn't mean something to them, but Jesus, the Jewish personality, means something to me, and I hope he means something to you. The gospel's not some insignificant story. It's a turnaround story. And Yeshua came to facilitate a great redemption, not so much political, but definitely spiritual and personal for people like me and you.
Most all of us need to be delivered from something in our lives. We have something inside that God needs to rip out. And in the story of Esther, God literally delivered people, his people, through the life of Esther. We talk about deliverance. Deliver me from something, Lord. Deliver me out. And God, I see, through Esther's story, from somewhere so different and unexpected, he delivered people through a teenage girl. So I think sometimes we're at the end of our rope, that we're like, how are you going to help us out of this? He'll send someone or change our story in a way least expected. And that's what I see in Esther.
Yeah.
Like who would think that a teenage girl in that time would deliver his people?
Yes, well, there's lots of surprises in biblical literature as in life. And it really is rather complex. There are a number of things interwoven in that, those statements of yours. Deliverance is material, delivering a people. There's a spiritual component. Mm-hmm. It can be in a relationship that needs delivered. It can be an employment situation that needs delivered. It can be health. It can be a culture. And God has a way. He makes it to happen. But I've seen God just at work in my life and you with yours. And it just doesn't belong to people you see on TV or people you see in biblical literature. To Kirsten's point and David's point, God really loves people. And that means you, wherever you are, whatever the circumstances are, help can come from unlikely places. And as soon as we turn to God, help is on the way.
A young teenage girl. And in that society in ancient times, girls weren't quite as important. And I'm fine with that. But God decided to raise up, should I say, this young girl to such a place and for such a time as that. It's so important. So we can't downplay anyone's age or position. No. He can use whoever he wants to.
Yeah, and to the point, if you look at biblical literature, God raises up individuals. We saw Ruth earlier in their series and now Esther. And we look in the Newer Testament where Paul advocates for women that are participating with him in advancing the kingdom. Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome.
Yes.
This is good. We'll be right back. Our tours happen 2 times a year. We go both in the fall and the spring. Please consider joining us on a Zola tour. You can find all the information right here on levitt.com.
Today's resource for $25 or more is something that you will want. If you read your Bible, and we hope you do, you will want to follow along with these 2 maps. This first map is a pictorial map of Jerusalem and Bethlehem. This one is a pilgrim's map of the Holy Land. When we get off the airplane in Tel Aviv, get on our bus, every tour, we are handed a map of the Holy Land. People open it up. I won't open it up right now because it's gigantic. But they circle where they've been and they look at different places on the map and say, this is where we're going. So come with us on a tour. $25 or more, wonderful resource. You can also find all these resources on our website, levitt.com. Professor Seif.
Ma'am, how can I help you?
Good, great teaching.
Well, you're kind
I went
to
from
say,
good to great.
Well, it's
great teaching on Esther today.
The Bible's a great book, and the mystery of deliverance, how God raises people up. Could be some people today need deliverance to come from an unknown place, and hey, it's on the way.
And it will come.
It surely will.
It will come.
Yes.
Esther was beautiful, and you may have seen this before. She portrays this wonderful song This is our actress, Esther. Let's go to her song right now.
Yes, and on the way out as you go, Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Join us right now for additional content that is only available on our social media sites, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Visit our website, levitt.com, for the current and past programs, the television schedule, tour information, and our free monthly newsletter, which is full of insightful articles and news commentary. View it online, or we can ship it directly to your mailbox every month. Also on our website is the online store. There, you can order this week's resource, or you can always give us a call at 1-800-WONDERS. Your donations to Our Jewish Roots help us to support these organizations as they bless Israel. Please remember we depend on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you. This has been a paid program brought to you by Zola Levitt Ministry.